Hello, YouTube friends. My name is Constance, and this is Cruelty-Free Musings. Welcome back to a Serious Talk Tuesday. Today, I will be discussing something that I encountered in the wilds of the YouTube lands. So without any further delay, let us get right into it. I really enjoy watching no-buy content and low-buy content, and I discovered this taste through watching Hannah Louise Poston. I've done my own no-buys. I have started watching several people this year because, I discovered their content through the fact that they're doing a no-buy year. And in particular, the person who is the subject, or the spark, for today's video is named Sarah Safarine. That is her channel. I will link it in the cards up there. I remembered which side the cards are on today. Hooray! So, I discovered her channel because she's doing a no-buy year, and I watched her intro and rules to her no-buy year video. And I was like, okay, yeah, I will definitely continue to watch her no-buy content. And I have discovered several, she's very active in the panning community, so I've discovered several project panners through her links and influence. So she has introduced me to several other people that I enjoy as well. So I discover her, I discover other people through her, time passes, and it's time for her first update. So beginning of February, end of January. And one of the things that she talks about is that she had a comment on her no-buy rules that she should buy books in order to support the author. Which, clearly there's some emotional loading in, people have major problems being told what they should do. In general, people don't like hearing should from other people. And there's also this concept of supporting the author, which is the aspect that particularly struck Sarah, and which she discusses quite a bit in the video, which I will link here, more specifically. So she talks about the concept of supporting artists, and how as one person, you're not going to make a huge difference in their career. Which I totally get, and that's not the aspect that struck me. So if you are interested in that discussion, go and check her out, and I will be talking about something else. So, specifically, I will be talking about the concept of personal growth versus social movement. So, I may have mentioned before on my channel that I'm a giant nerd about everything that I am interested in. One of the things that I am interested in is personal growth, personality types, models, ways of improving your life and adapting specific paths for personal growth to you so that you will actually apply the things successfully. Seems really practical. So, in particular, I follow in podcast form, they also have a YouTube channel, but I follow a podcast called Personality Hacker, links in cards, and in one of their recent, like, turn of the year sort of videos, they discussed getting some flack for suggesting that personal growth is more important than social movements. And of course, qualifier. Like, even in their own discussion of it, they say, we're saying this from our own perspective. It is important for us. It has higher value and importance for us. Like, we see this as having been very high leverage in our own lives. And personally, I also see personal growth having been very high leverage in my own life. So I am always on board with someone getting onto a personal growth track. And that's kind of how I see this no-buy movement. You are trying to divorce yourself from consumerism by deliberately not buying stuff for a while, and then reapproaching consumerism from, like, the other side, having learned about yourself and, like, knowing more stuff about your tastes and how you interact with makeup and the makeup that you have, and knowing your collection better, and all of these things. It's like a very specific form of personal growth, but I have found that for me, it has affected my life in more areas than just makeup. So it's, like, I don't think that it's overselling it to consider a no-buy to be potentially personal growth. So, the comment that Sarah was talking about, by contrast, you should support artists because this is beneficial to society, is taking a social movement perspective on no-buys. Like, you're trying to become more ethical and aware of your decisions overall, and that is a form of personal growth, in my opinion. Also, as someone who has gone cruelty-free as part of, you know, defining and refining my ethic and applying it to my life more thoroughly, becoming a more ethical consumer is part of personal growth. At least for me. So, so this comment, which I have not read, I am purely going off of Sarah's description of the comment. So if somehow the person that left this comment finds this video, hi, hello, I am responding to you secondhand, and don't take anything personally. I think that the concept is really interesting. So, the no-buy as a social movement, it's about becoming more ethical, supporting smaller brands, doing things related to ethical consumerism more directly than personal growth. Coffee scented water. It's great. So, I thought that the contrast between these two ideas was really interesting. obviously, personally, I have no problem with buying. Obviously, I have no problem with buying books. I have no problem with supporting artists, particularly, like, in the context of supporting artists, I am way more likely to buy a book than buy a print or something like that. Even jewelry, most of my jewelry is inherited. It's not something that I'm actively buying and curating my collection of. So in this argument probably would not be nearly as interesting to me if it hadn't been stated in the context of books. I love books. I love to read. One of my rules during my 3-month no-buy was that I was allowed to buy one book a month if I had read the book that I bought the month before. And I did buy 2 books during my 3-month no-buy. One of them was a doozy. But I did finish it eventually. So, I have no problem with buying books. I don't think that buying books because you feel like you should support an artist is particularly a good way of structuring something. So here again we come up against this concept of should. And I have problems with should as well, as does like everyone that talks about should on YouTube that I have ever heard to discuss should. There is no point in buying a book that you will not read or look at or enjoy. This is the KonMari method in a nutshell, right? It's like, if it sparks joy for you, it's good to have. If it doesn't spark joy, pointless. I really enjoy books, so more books spark joy for me than for someone who doesn't enjoy books the same way. So for example, Sarah says, I don't read, why would I buy books because someone tells me that I should? Totally legitimate. And here again, this is the distinction between approaching a no-buy as a means of personal growth, distinguishing yourself from your purchasing behavior, versus approaching your buying behavior as a way to influence the world around you. So this is kind of the concept of, I guess it's related to the concept of social justice and social justice warriors, where it's like, okay, here are these people that part of their mission in life is to see discrimination in the internet and try and correct it, which is fine if you're already a healthy person. If you are not a healthy person, if you haven't, like, everyone has emotional wounds somewhere in their background that they're coping with in various ways. Some people are legitimately social justice warriors and they are approaching the concept of social justice from a totally whole and healthy place. Other people are projecting their pain onto other people and then responding in a totally disproportionate way just because that's the way humans work. If you haven't dealt with the things that are part of your personal history, if you haven't come to terms with them, you are going to project them, and you are going to respond to your projections in an outsized way because it's a reflection of something that is raw. It's not healed inside yourself. So that's kind of the personality hacker perspective and my own perspective on the relative values of social movements versus personal growth. Like, you have to grow as a human first, because how are you going to take the splinter out of your brother's eye before you take the log out of your own eye? You can't. You can't respond to something that mirrors your pain before you've dealt with your own pain. Now, all of that aside, I think it's totally fine if you want to approach a no-buy from a social movement perspective. It's just also relevant that there is this alternative perspective. Not everyone is coming at the thing from the same place. In fact, no one is coming at anything from exactly the same place. So like, the difference between Angelica Nyquist, who is on a low buy because she has so much stuff and she wants to be able to use the stuff that she genuinely loves, versus Jocelyn Clare, who is on a low buy because she wants to save money and it's not really about the stuff in any kind of significant way. She's just interested in the saving money aspect. Versus Sarah Safarine, who listened to Hannah Louise Poston and went down the checklist of what Hannah said, you know, if you have these signs, you might consider going on a no-buy or a low-buy. Like, these were signs in me that I had a problem, so if you have these same things, this was something that worked for me and it might also work for you. And she was like, and Sarah, hearing this list of things, thought, that is me. I have a problem and I did not even know. So those are 3 completely different ways of approaching a low buy or a no buy. 3 completely different perspectives that I just thought of off the top of my head. 3 completely different people, completely different subscriber bases, completely different size channels. I guess what this all comes down to is that most of the people that I have seen take on a no-buy or a low-buy have been doing it for personal growth reasons. Personally, just the corner of YouTube that I'm in. So this video from Sarah exposed me to another aspect of the no-buy community, which is using purchasing for ethical reasons and not only becoming ethical consumers for personal growth reasons, but also for social impact reasons, which I think is cool. And I think it's also important to realize that some people aren't there yet. So, someone who is in the beginning stages of realizing that they have a shopping addiction is not prepared to grapple with the ethical considerations of supporting artists and like where that fits in their lives. There's just not enough space in your head to grapple with both things at once. Whereas someone who is past the actual addiction or never experienced it to begin with, lucky, is going to think about things from a completely different perspective, is maybe going to take in more information, but is going to tunnel vision in a different way because they're tuned to something else. I do think that the concept of tuning your no-buy rules in order to support artists is an interesting one. And I don't have a particular problem with it personally. Like, as I said, I don't consume much art or jewelry or things of that nature. And books are an experience for me. They're not part of supporting artistry, per se. They're a way of exposing myself to ideas instead. So, my perspective, as someone who has gone through a no-buy and incorporated rules from the no-buy into my life, I still would not personally buy a book to support an artist. I would buy a book to have an experience. As someone who loves books and loves the experience of reading. But the concept that there are people in the world that are using their purchasing decisions to impact the world and support artists and, you know, all of these beneficial things is still cool to me. I don't consider supporting artists specifically to be more beneficial than being an ethical consumer. If that is a part of your values, if it's a part of your value system to support independent artists, absolutely go for it. At the same time, you have to recognize that not everyone is going to share every part of your value system, no matter who you are or what your value system is. There are going to be things that matter to you that do not matter to the person next to you, even if you're really close to them, and even if you share a lot of things in common with them. So to summarize, I personally viewed my no-buy as an aspect of personal growth. Most people that I follow on YouTube that have either done a no-buy in the past or are currently doing a no-buy are doing it for personal growth reasons. 3, there are people on YouTube or consumers of YouTube who are doing no-buys from the perspective of social impact. And 4, people value different things when it comes to social impact. So for example, the concept of being cruelty-free is that you don't want the things that you put on your face to have been tested on animals because, my perspective is I wouldn't torture an animal. I'm not going to pay someone else to torture an animal for me. So, and I consider this completely separate from veganism, which a lot of people don't consider it ethically separate from veganism, and that's one way that ethics around consumerism can diverge even among people who consider themselves to have relatively similar ethics. So for example, most of my cruelty-free beauty YouTubers, Kelly Gooch for example, I believe is or is going vegan, which is great for her. Love Kelly. She is the person that exposed me to project panning and to cruelty-free. Like the concepts. So, but there's space in the world for a bunch of different expressions of ethically consistent behavior. And I guess that's where I come down on it in the end. And last of all, someone who is on a no-buy for personal growth reasons doesn't have the space to think about the social impact. Like, from personal experience, when I was on a no-buy, I was not thinking about social impact. I was not thinking about how my buying decisions were affecting the world at all. I just wasn't. And that's okay. That's what you have space for. I hope you enjoyed, or learned something, or both. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you feel like. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.